What's going on, everybody? Who's 186 back again with another video. Um, yeah, interesting because I was gonna make this video tomorrow, but I had a call from work. Let me do a sound check while I talk to you guys. I was supposed to do this tomorrow, but I got a call from my job saying that I had the day off, so I'm doing this now. I got a call from my job. Yeah, good. All right. Sound quality is good. Yeah, so I got the day off. I had the night off, so I decided to finally make this video. Right, and I guess the reason why I'm making the video is because this news, not only with Redfall coming out the way it did, but the interview that Phil Spencer did after the fact caused a lot of conversation in the community. Let's just say, right, and I've been on Twitter the last couple of days. Everything is it's been pretty pretty crazy. Give me 1 second. Hold on. Yeah, my fault. Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. The talking points and rhetoric and everything going on with this, and not only with Redfall, but with the interview that Phil Spencer did with Kind of Funny Games. And I'm not. Hopefully, this is not going to be a long video. I feel like a lot of the talking, a lot of the discussion going on is pretty unnecessary. And I guess I'll explain it. I'll explain it a little bit. But let me before I do, let me just talk about Redfall real quick, right? So the game came out during our podcast on Thursday, right? We did obviously, if you haven't subscribed, watch the Overrated podcast. Me and Traditionalist 101, aka Steve. We did a show on Thursday with VHC Dark. Shout out to him. And we didn't really talk about Redfall, but oh wait, no. I fucked up. My bad. We did do check out our Thursday show. We did the Mario Brothers spoiler cast, and we also talked about game preservation in that episode also. But our Monday show, it was just me and Steven. We talked about Redfall, and the game came out. I believe people had access to the game that day on Monday, and the review scores were coming in, and the score and it got an 80. No. It got the Metacritic score last time I checked was 64. Right, like 64. So the game came out, buggy. Graphically the game looked like dog shit. Then it wasn't good, right? And the thing is, when it comes to Redfall, and I never had any interest in Redfall. Right, I have a little bit more interest in Starfield, but Redfall is a big title from Microsoft, right? It's a landmark title. What's going on, Malta? N64 is awesome. Um, yeah, sure, yeah. It's a great console, not better than PlayStation, but we know how that is. But thank you for watching, bro. So, um, so the game comes out, and this is a landmark title for Microsoft, right? Because one, it keynoted one of their major um showcases, right? It really was the first exclusive title that Arcane was making for Microsoft, because obviously Arcane is part of the whole Bethesda family, right? And it was the first Microsoft exclusive to come out for $70. Phil Spencer, he's the head of Microsoft. He's the head of Microsoft. He did an interview with Kind of Funny Games that I'm going to be talking about in a few moments. Yeah. If you have Game Pass, you can play it. If you want to. The game came out a bit rough. I know there's some people on my timeline that is actually enjoying the game, and I feel like those people have very low standards. But it is what it is. I don't want to judge. Um, yeah. So like a G. Who sounds like a G? Phil Spencer. Yeah. Let me know. Yeah. So the game comes out to mediocre reviews. Um, he probably drives a supercar. He probably had the money to drive it. He probably had the money. So, yeah, where was I at? Right. So, all right. So, Redfall comes out to a bad reception, right? And like I said, it's a big landmark title for Microsoft, right? Keynoted event, keynoted a major event, cost $70 first. Microsoft exclusive to come out for $70, and yada yada yada. So, and what's funny to me? I feel like there's a lot of similarities. No, I know I haven't played Redfall. I don't waste my time playing bad games. But you look at the game and you can just see like awful graphics. And the gameplay loop is of like having multiple people, shooting a big baddie around. Like that's not my type of gameplay style. Oh, I have all three. I have a Switch, PS5, and Xbox Series S. No, I don't waste my time, man. Like I'm getting up there in age. I gotta spend my time playing good shit. You know what I mean? Gotta spend my time. Yeah, I gotta spend my time playing good games, bro. Um, so yeah, so it's a landmark title for them. So for them for this game to come out the way it did, it does remind me a lot of Crackdown 3, right? Because Crackdown 3 also keynoted a major event for Microsoft, right? Like it was a big return for the franchise after one and two, one being a very good game, and Crackdown 2 not being not so good. But Crackdown 3 was supposed to be kind of like this new age, this new game for Microsoft. They touted the cloud. Um, they touted the cloud and all the other shit, and they really, and that was the reason why I bought an Xbox, Crackdown. And unfortunately, the game came out and it was mid. It was absolutely mid. And like it is what it is. But it reminds me a lot about that, because a lot of the talk I'm hearing about, Phil Spencer apologizing and all the other shit. Like I feel like I've heard this before. I feel like I've heard this before, right? The fanboy fan base on Twitter losing faith in Phil. You have infighting. You have like discourse between the fanboys going straight to hell. I feel like I'm suffering from deja vu, right? And to me, and here's the thing: like when it comes to Redfall, it really did confirm my biggest fears of Game Pass. And now let me also say this off rip. Let me let me say this. Now, obviously, do I believe that all the games that Microsoft is going to be making on the Xbox and putting it on Game Pass is going to be bad? No, I don't think that. I don't think that. But when you have a game from a studio like Arcane, right, who has a library of great games in their catalog, for this game to be their first effort is a fucking disgrace. It just is. Like you guys can damage control and be like, oh, I enjoy the game. That's cute. That's cute that you like the game. The fact is, the game right now is sitting at a 64 on Metacritic, and I don't believe even Ghostwire Tokyo, which did have I forgot what his Metacritic score is. Let me see. Let me check it out real quick. Like I think Ghostwire Tokyo, and that game was exclusive to PlayStation at one point. It ain't, but definitely wasn't the shit show that Redfall is. Let me look at it real quick. All right, so give me 1 second. Let me see. Where's the? Okay, I'll just look at the wiki. Um, let's look at the wiki. Let me see where if it has a score somewhere down here. Let me see. Reception. Okay, it has a 75 on Metacritic on PlayStation, 82 on Xbox, right? Because that it just came out on Xbox most recently. Show us the game, bro. Like what game? Redfall or Ghostwire Tokyo? Let me know. But yeah. So even like Ghostwire, Dishonored, these games came out, and at least they were at least somewhat quality games. They're quality games. This is, and Redfall isn't. Redfall simply isn't, man. Like even you can enjoy the game all you want, but that game looks like ass to me. And the thing that I always worried about when it came to Game Pass was that Microsoft was going to be buying these publishers, right? Like Bethesda, like they tried to do with Activision. Okay, let me show you gameplay. I'll get the gameplay for you. I'm gonna go to YouTube. So hold on. Let me get the gameplay. Let me see. Okay. I'm just waiting for the ad to leave, and then we can play it. Now this video is courtesy of Penguin Zero. So shout out to him. Let me see. Presentation. Okay. All right. So this is the game. Actually, let me go to a different video. Hold on. Let me go to one that doesn't have a face. Let me see one that doesn't have a face in it. Okay. So let me just show you this video from Shirako. This is the game right here. This is what the game looks like. It's a game where it's a co-op shooter. Even though you can play it by yourself, it's a co-op shooter where you and three other people go around killing vampires and I guess militia groups and stuff like that, and you shoot them. I mean, that's pretty much that's pretty much what I've heard about the game, right? So like okay, so like I was saying, right? My biggest fear with Game Pass is that you were going to buy these publishers, right? And then and the big publishers too. Like I know Activision, they're gonna play that. They're gonna buy that. I know that deal hasn't gone through. I think I don't know. I don't they're going to appeal the decision, but like I said, we don't know what they're gonna do with that yet. But they tried to buy Activision, and they're not done buying publishers and developers. They're probably gonna buy more. I mean, I right now all you've seen so far, Malta, is him running around. That's all you've seen. Like we haven't seen him shoot anybody or do anything. But if it looked good, then yeah, that I mean, props to you. I don't know what he's playing it on. Oh, he's probably playing it on. He's probably playing it on PC. It definitely runs on 60. It definitely looks better on PC. But if you play this game on console, it looks like ass in my opinion. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna stop sharing now because like I don't want to see his gameplay. But yeah. So like my biggest fear with Game Pass is that you're going to buy these studios, you're gonna buy these publishers, you're gonna buy these developers, and and hopefully the game comes out on Game Pass. It doesn't matter if it's complete. It doesn't matter if it had too many. If it it doesn't matter the bugs. None of that mattered. The only thing that mattered was getting the game on Game Pass. That's my biggest fear. And you see, and that's what happened with Redfall. I mean, it could have happened. It could happen to an Activision or any studio within Activision. Hell, I would argue it kind of happened with Halo Infinite, and Halo Infinite is a good game. It's a very good game, but the game lacked a shit ton of content, and that's not for a franchise like Halo. That should never be the case. You know what I'm saying? Like again, and I know people are gonna point out, they're gonna point out, Vampire Hunt, Vampire Survivor, and Pentiment, and all the other stuff, all the smaller games, and that's good. Like I like the fact that Game Pass offers people an opportunity to play some of these games, but the facts are, when you're in the console gaming space, the game that make the most that create the most headway is the big AAA games. It's the game that headline your showcases. It's the so-called killer apps, the console sellers. It's the game of the year. Yeah, I liked Halo, but it didn't have that much content. And I haven't gone back and played it since. Um, I do want to go back and play it, but like I said, man, the game launched with no content, and you know, and the progression system in that game is not good. I don't feel rewarded by playing that game. But regardless of that, like that is my biggest fear when it comes to Game Pass. Like I don't feel like my fear with Game Pass is that I just don't feel like I feel like these publishers and developers and these executives more often than not are going to pressure these creators into making into putting the game on Game Pass. They use Game Pass as a safety net when a game is not complete, or if the game is, or at least in Redfall case, comes out broken and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? And that's a big fear that I have with Game Pass. Now again, I have Game Pass. I like Game Pass. I don't have a problem with Game Pass. But I feel like that is the danger, that we're gonna get more and more games from these big publishers and big devs that don't come out with games fully complete at launch. Yeah, I feel like we're always gonna be missing a portion, a very important part of that game, because it needs to come out for because we have our quarterly earnings and stuff like that, right? Like that's what I feel. That's what I feel like could happen, right? And I'm not saying it could happen all the time, but I feel like that type of stuff could happen for the bigger games, like Halo Infinite, like Crackdown 3, like um like Redfall. And I don't want to see that become a trend. So yeah, so I mean, my thoughts on on Redfall. Like, I mean, it is what it is, bro. Like, the game. Like, again, if you're enjoying the game, um, more power to you, I guess. But the game should never have launched the way it did. Now, I feel like the next day, Phil Spencer did his interview with kind of funny games, right? And there were a couple talking points that were that came out after the interview, right? I'm trying to remember. I was the interview was 40 minutes. I'm trying to remember everything that was said. Even though I'm not gonna go over, I'm not gonna go over the whole interview, but I'm trying to remember what he said. Right. So he took responsibility, kinda, for what happened with the game. You know, he apologized and all the other stuff, and I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. Wait, but here's the thing that does annoy me, right? And this is more towards the Xbox fanboys, right? They sit there and no, it's not just Xbox fanboy. It's like, I know the kind of funny dudes did the same thing, and I understand that because he's giving them the interview, right? Like he's doing them a favor, right? Regardless of whether you thought the interview was softball or not, at the end of the day, he did them a favor, and like I just feel like everyone is giving this man props for talking and doing an interview, especially after what happened with Redfall, and saying, "Oh, he was accountable" and all the other stuff. I'm like, why am I giving this dude credit? What am I giving him credit for? For being in charge for a company that allowed Redfall to release the way it did? That's what we're giving him credit for? Like, again, here's my problem with the whole Phil Spencer thing when it comes to him getting praised for doing the interview. There's nothing to praise. Yeah, he talked about Redfall. Okay, and like if he had just done the interview and not talked about Redfall, yeah, he would look like an idiot. So why would I give him credit for talking about Redfall? And then people are like, "Oh, well, Jim Ryan would not do the same thing." Who gives a flying fuck what Jim Ryan does? The only thing that I care about with Jim Ryan is when we're gonna get a PlayStation showcase. When we're gonna get something about PlayStation, the future of PlayStation. That's the only thing I give a shit about when it comes to this dude. When it comes to that dude. And frankly, it should be the only thing that should matter when it comes to Phil Spencer. But the problem is that we have a subsection of the Xbox community that look at Phil Spencer like a celebrity, right? An accessible celebrity, right? They sit there, they be like, "Oh, Phil's a nice guy," and all the other stuff, and he's so personable. I love Phil and all the other stuff, and I'm like, bro, like seriously, I don't get it, man. I don't get it. Like, I don't know, man. I've never really been into the whole celebrity worship thing and hero worship thing. It's never been my cup of tea. But like, damn, bro, like we have a game that's a 60 plus on Metacritic, right? People, especially on the Xbox, right? PC, I can't speak to how the game performing on PC, but on console, the game's performing poorly on console. It just is, right? The game comes out, it's only 30 FPS, despite the fact that they marketed the console as 60 FPS, the strongest console ever, but yet the game looks like it came out on the 360. And and that happened, and yet we're giving this dude credit for taking responsibility for the dog shit that he helped create. I just don't understand. And I saw this one article from a journalist saying that, well, Microsoft wasn't really involved in Redfall. And I'm like, well, they were involved enough to tell them not to make a PS5 version or a Nintendo Switch version. So clearly, this is their game. This is their game. This is their baby. And the thing that I've been seeing from a subsection of the Xbox fanboys is that they're doing nothing but damage controlling this game. That's all they're doing. And to me, it's not surprising. It's not surprising, but it's disappointing. But that's just what it is, right? So yeah, I'm not giving him credit for doing an interview or saying, "Oh, we have to do better" and all the other shit. Because frankly, I've heard this story before. I've heard this story from him before. So why am I giving him props for talking? Like, the fuck out of here! I'm not doing that. One of the things he said was oh man, let me see. What did he say? He said that he said that um even if Starfield, right? Even if Starfield came out as 11 out of 10, it's still not going to get people to sell their PlayStation 5s, right? And to that I say, Phil Spencer, that's not your fucking job. Your job is not to sell me on your is not to convince me to sell my PS5. Your job is to convince people that Game Pass is a viable option. It's your job to lead Xbox to whatever it is that they're planning on doing, right? And whether or not people, I know some people are saying, "Oh, it's them going third party and all the other stuff," and to me, I'm not going to I'm not going to go that far because frankly I have no idea what they plan on doing, no clue. But the thing is that Phil Spencer's job is not to convince me to sell my PS5. That's not his job, right? And it went in conjunction with him saying that at the end of the day he feels like we are behind Sony and there's no way we can catch up, right? And saying that we lost in a generation, they lost in the seventh or eighth generation with the PS4 and the Xbox One. It was the worst generation to lose because everyone is kind of stuck in their ecosystem. And I would say to him, tough shit. Tough shit, man. Okay, I bought the first Xbox that I bought was the Xbox One S, right? I bought it having fully been committed to the PlayStation brand for what? For 20 years, 20, 30 years? Like, I've been in the PlayStation ecosystem since the OG PlayStation. And yet it didn't stop me from buying an Xbox. So this idea that somehow he thinks that this idea that they're this thought that, hey, we can't really convince people to we can't really convince them, people who are in an ecosystem, to move to our ecosystem. Bro, like, this ain't fucking it's not fucking, it's not like I'm moving to a different house. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I'm moving to a different area. Like, it just having places where you play games. That's it. And this is the same guy who preaches about, oh, you can play games on your console, your phone, your TV, your toaster, your bathroom, everywhere, right? Xbox everywhere, right? Xbox anywhere. And I'm like, but yet now we're worried about people moving from ecosystem to ecosystem. Like, the fuck? Like, uh, I don't get it, man. I don't get it. And I get it. He's the head of Xbox. He has all the numbers. He has all the metrics and all the other bullshit. But if you're worried about ecosystems and stuff like that, then I mean, then what are we doing here? What's the point? What are we doing? What are we doing? Like, I don't know, man. I don't get it. But this idea that, we have to convince people to sell our PS5. No, it's not. That's not how you go about it. It's not how you go about it. I mean, I know the people he interact with are not kids. Like if when I was younger, yeah, I had a Super Nintendo. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't afford to go to a to the Sega Genesis ecosystem because I didn't have the money. You know what I mean? Like my parents had the money and they bought me one. They weren't gonna buy me a second one, but I still played games on the Sega Genesis. I had friends who had the Sega Genesis, and I had a Sega Genesis in my house for a little bit. You know what I'm saying? But nowadays people can't afford multiple to buy multiple consoles and be part of multiple ecosystems. How half the fucking morons whining on Twitter own multiple consoles? So I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. Um, yeah. So in the comment that I think got the biggest the comment that got the biggest attention, in my opinion, is the stuff that he said about we're not going to out console Sony and Nintendo, right? That we're not going to be able to beat them based on what on this purely being a console, right? Like we have to go ahead and do different things and all that stuff. And to that, I'll say that was kind of obvious. You know what I mean? That was kind of the point. Like that's kind of obvious. Like you see what they've done. I mean, Game Pass exists because of it, because they couldn't compete with Sony and mainly Sony. Nintendo, I don't think they give two shits about what Nintendo's doing, right? But it's mainly just Sony. And you look at I'll maintain this. I'll say this till I'm blue in the face. Ever since the latter half of the 360 era, Sony has curb stomped Microsoft when it comes to exclusives. Since the latter half of the 360 era, they've dog stomped them. Sony has, right? And after a while, they realized that hey, we have to do something different. In my opinion, that's why Game Pass exists, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. I don't have a problem with them pivoting to a different strategy. And while I disagree with this notion that we have to we can't compete with them, we can't out console them because they did it already with the 360. But if that's how they feel, it's whatever. I don't give a shit. I don't care. Right? If that's how you feel, whatever. Right? My overall point, and this is kind of like the end of the video, right? Here's my overall point. All the discussion about Phil Spencer getting fired and all the other stuff, I don't give a shit about that. I don't care. It won't change my life whether or not he gets fired or not. Right? I don't I don't think it will happen, but even if it does, I don't give a shit. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like all the discussion about what he really meant by we can't out console Sony. You guys can keep that conversation to yourselves. I don't give two flying fucks about that conversation. The only thing that I will actively push back on is this notion that we can't create great games won't solve your problems. Right? That's the one thing that I have to push back on, because that's what you said, that just because we make great games is not going to solve our issue when it comes to being in last place or whatever. I mean, so what's the solution? What's the solution? We're going to make Redfall? That's our solution, making Redfall? And yes, I get it, and I'll repeat it again. Yes, you had whatever the fuck that game called, Peppermint, and Vampire Survivors, and all the other stuff. That's cute. That's fine. We all know what creates the conversation when it comes to consoles, and that's the big budget AAA games. And when you're Arcane, you are now part of that exclusive bubble, right? And everyone's saying, well, Jedi Survivor came out with bugs. Okay, and Zelda is only going to be what 20 frames per second when it comes out. Okay, and that game's going to be Game of the Year. Why? Because the quality of the game is good. The reason why people shit on Redfall because the game looks like dog shit and it plays like dog shit on the console that is supposed to be the most powerful console in the world, right? And that's why I'm so confused by this whole old console. We can't compete with Sony console wise and all the other. We can't out console Sony. Well, you made a machine to do that. Isn't that what the fucking machine is? Not only going all the way back to the Scorpio, right? Remember the Scorpio, the machine that eats monsters for breakfast. Remember that machine? I mean, I man, but even though even if I agree with everything that he said in the video, and even if I disagree with everything that Phil Spencer said in that interview, and even if I disagree with everything that the damage controlling Xbox fanboys have been saying, regardless of your vision, regardless of what you planned on doing, regardless of what it doesn't matter how you feel when it comes to the console race, whether you're going to be first, last, whether I don't give a flying fuck about none of that. You can have your own vision. You can have your own pathway to succeed. The thing that I have to say about all of this is that regardless of your vision, does not excuse what releasing Redfall the way it did. It doesn't excuse none of that. And not going to help releasing games like Redfall. It doesn't help. You can come out with you can say all this bullshit about what our plans are and this and that. Releasing Redfall the way it is not going to help. It's definitely not going to help. And like I said before, if you enjoy the game, more power to you. But if you release more games like Redfall, then I mean that's fine. You guys can keep it. Y'all can have it. Y'all can have it. Man, I think that's it, man. Yeah, I think that's it. I'll talk to you guys later.